There was a night in 2008 when Elon Musk sat in a nearly empty airport lounge with his phone face down on the table, because he could no longer bear to watch another problem arrive. Elon did not have that kind of night waiting for him. Tesla was bleeding money. SpaceX had failed 3 times to reach orbit. His marriage was breaking under the weight of distance, grief, and years of being needed somewhere else. The public saw a young billionaire with wild dreams. Investors saw risk. Engineers saw a leader who refused to quit. But what almost nobody saw was the man sitting alone after midnight, staring at nothing, wondering how much of himself the future was still going to ask for. And then, according to the kind of story that never makes a business biography, but somehow feels more honest than a headline, a woman sat down across from him. She was not famous. She was not a model walking out of a magazine. She was not there to ask him for money, attention, or a place inside his empire. She was simply a woman delayed by the same storm, carrying a small paper cup of tea with rain on the shoulders of her coat and the calm expression of someone who had learned not to be impressed by powerful men. For a while, neither of them spoke. Elon looked exhausted in that way men often look when they have been praised for their strength for so long that they no longer know where to put their pain. His hair was slightly messy. His shirt collar was open. His eyes were red from too many flights, too many calls, too many impossible decisions. He had the face of a man being chased by tomorrow. The woman finally looked at him and said, quietly, "You look like someone who has forgotten what silence is supposed to feel like." That was all. No flattery, no question about rockets, no mention of Mars, no nervous excitement. Just one sentence, spoken gently, as if she had seen through the armor without trying to break it. Elon almost smiled, but the smile did not arrive. Instead, he lowered his eyes to the table. Because when someone is truly tired, kindness can feel more dangerous than criticism. Criticism gives you something to fight. Kindness gives you nowhere to hide. And that is where this story begins. Not in a boardroom, not on a launch pad, not inside a factory filled with sparks and unfinished cars. It begins in a quiet corner where the man who wanted to change the future met someone who was not asking him about the future at all. She was asking, without saying it directly, whether anyone was still allowed to see Elon Musk as a human being. The world had already begun turning him into a symbol: genius, risk-taker, disruptor, madman, savior, failure, visionary. Depending on the day, strangers placed a different mask over his face and argued about the mask as if it were the man. But symbols are lonely things. They can be admired, they can be attacked, they can be studied, but they cannot be held. They cannot be asked if they have eaten. They cannot be told with real concern that they look like they have been carrying too much for too long. The woman across from him did exactly that. She did not ask what happened to the rocket. She asked whether he had slept. And for a man whose life had become a war against limits, that question may have landed harder than any headline. What the public did not see in 2008 was how close everything came to falling apart at once. SpaceX had already watched 3 Falcon 1 launches fail. Each failure did not merely cost money. It cost faith. It cost credibility. It cost the invisible strength of people who had convinced their families that all this risk would eventually mean something.
Tesla was struggling to survive. The financial crisis was freezing capital. Every meeting seemed to carry the same unspoken threat. One wrong move, and the dream would become a cautionary tale. Elon had been through pressure before.
He had left South Africa as a young man with a suitcase full of restlessness. He had lived inside the awkward hunger of a boy who escaped into books because books were safer than the world around him. He had known bullying. He had known emotional distance. He had known what it felt like to be misunderstood early enough in life that misunderstanding became almost familiar. But this was different. This was not a school corridor. This was not a childhood wound he could bury under ambition. This was everything he had built, everything he had borrowed against, everything he had promised, collapsing toward the same narrow doorway at the same time. The woman listened as he spoke in fragments. Not a confession, not exactly. Men like Elon do not always know how to confess. They explain pressure as if they are giving a status update. They describe exhaustion as logistics. They turn fear into a schedule, grief into action items, loneliness into another late night at work. He told her about rockets in the language of survival. He told her about Tesla as if the company were a child in intensive care. He spoke about money like oxygen. He spoke about time like an enemy. And every so often, when he became too technical, she brought him back with a simple question. "But what did that cost you?" At first he answered with numbers. Then he answered with silence. Because the real cost was not only financial. The real cost was the chair he was not sitting in at home. The phone calls he cut short. The relationships that slowly learned to expect his absence. The grief he had pushed into work because stopping would have meant feeling it. The old ache from childhood that kept whispering that if he could just build something big enough, maybe the pain would finally become useful. And that is the secret many people never understand about ambition. Sometimes men run toward greatness because standing still would make them feel everything they lost. That became the line that stayed between them. Sometimes men run toward greatness because standing still would make them feel everything they lost. The woman did not say it as an accusation. She said it like a prayer for someone who had forgotten he was wounded. Elon looked away when she said it, not because it was false, because it was too close. In that moment, the airport around them seemed to disappear. She asked him what he wanted most if all the companies survived. He gave the answer people expected: to make humanity multiplanetary, to accelerate electric transport, to prove impossible things could be done. She waited. Then she asked again, softer this time. "No. What do you want when nobody is watching?" That question found the room inside him that no investor presentation could enter. He did not answer for a long time. Maybe he thought about his mother, May, who had believed in him before belief was convenient. Maybe he thought about the child he had lost years earlier, a grief so terrible that work became not only ambition, but shelter. Maybe he thought about his own children, and the strange cruelty of being known by millions while still trying to be known properly by the people at home. Finally, he said something small. Peace. One word. Not victory, not Mars, not revenge against doubters. Peace. The woman nodded as if she had expected that answer all along. Then she reached across the table, not dramatically, not romantically, just with the steady tenderness of a person who understands that human contact can sometimes say what language cannot.
Her hand rested near his, close enough to offer warmth, far enough not to demand anything. And for a few seconds, Elon Musk did not have to be the man who saved the company. He did not have to be the man who justified the risk. He did not have to be the boy from South Africa proving he could survive the world. He was simply tired.
And someone had noticed. That is why this unknown woman becomes so powerful in the imagination. Not because she was glamorous, not because she entered history, but because she may have offered the rarest thing a man like Elon could receive at that moment. A place where his exhaustion was not treated as weakness. The next call came before sunrise. The storm had eased. The lounge was emptier now. The woman stood to leave, and Elon looked almost startled, as if some part of him had assumed she belonged to that strange, suspended hour outside real life. She put on her coat and said one final thing. "The future may need your mind, Elon, but the people who love you need the part of you that can still come home." He watched her walk away. No photograph, no headline, no public proof. Only a sentence that would have been easy to forget if it had not hurt so much. Not long after that season of darkness, the fourth Falcon 1 finally reached orbit. People cheered, engineers cried. The impossible thing became real. Then, NASA awarded SpaceX a contract that helped pull the company back from the edge. Tesla found just enough breath to continue. The story, as history remembers it, became one of resilience, risk, and almost mythic determination. But success has a strange way of editing pain out of the picture. When a rocket reaches orbit, nobody asks who was emotionally missing from the room at home. When a company survives, nobody counts the dinners lost, the birthdays shortened, the marriages strained, the children waiting for a father whose body might arrive, but whose mind was still somewhere inside a factory, a launch pad, a crisis. Because Elon Musk did survive that period. He survived in the way intensely driven people often survive. He moved faster. He worked harder. He turned pressure into motion, and motion into identity. He kept building. He kept risking. He kept chasing a future so large that ordinary life sometimes looked too small beside it. And yet, perhaps somewhere inside him, a quiet sentence remained. The future may need your mind. But the people who love you need the part of you that can still come home. Maybe that is what the mystery woman really represented. Not a fairy tale romance, not a secret scandal, not a name hidden in the margins of fame. She represented the human question underneath Elon Musk's entire life. Can a man build tomorrow without disappearing from today? That question follows him through everything. Through factories where he slept on floors. Through launches where the whole world watched the sky. Through interviews where he looked powerful but not always rested. Through criticism, praise, fatherhood, divorce, reinvention, controversy, and the endless, strange loneliness of being one of the most discussed men alive. The headlines have always wanted him to be simple. Hero or villain. Genius or reckless dreamer. Great man or impossible man. But people are not that clean, especially people carrying old wounds under public ambition. Elon is not only the rockets. He is not only the cars. He is not only the companies, the controversies, the money, or the arguments strangers have about him online. He is also the boy who learned early that books could feel safer than people. The son shaped by a complicated father wound.
The young man who believed distance might save him. The father who has known both love and absence. The builder who sometimes seemed able to move the world forward while struggling to keep peace inside his own life. That is what makes stories like this matter. Not because we need to know the woman's name. Maybe the point is that we do not. Maybe the point is that in one quiet hour, someone without fame, without power, without any need to be remembered, gave a powerful man something the world rarely gave him: permission to be human. And perhaps that is what truly wins a heart. Not beauty alone, not mystery alone, not admiration,
but the rare ability to sit across from someone everyone is using as a symbol and speak to the soul beneath the symbol. Because the greatest loneliness is not being alone in a room. The greatest loneliness is being surrounded by people who need what you can do, but never ask what it is doing to you. If that woman captured Elon Musk's heart, maybe it was because she did not try to own it. She simply reminded him that he still had one. And that reminder may be more powerful than any romance. It may be more powerful than applause. It may be more powerful than another victory. Because in the end, after every launch, every factory, every argument, every impossible dream, there is still a man standing somewhere after the noise has faded, wondering what all of it means if there is no one left who can look at him and say, "I see the real you, and I am still here." That is the hidden ache inside this story. The world needed Elon Musk to keep running toward tomorrow. But somewhere along the way, one unknown woman may have loved him most by asking whether he still knew how to come home. If stories like this help you see the human side of Elon Musk, subscribe to Elon Musk, Untold Legacy for more quiet chapters behind the man the world cannot stop watching.